Hi there, and welcome to a new episode of Extreme Banding, the slow YouTube camera channel dealing with various photographic nightmares. I am living in one of them right now, December in the north of Sweden. Weather is so-so, and the sun never rises. There's no time or place for photography, so what can you do? Think about which all-mechanical rangefinder camera with a cost below 1,000 euros you would like to use for the rest of your life, perhaps. There were, of course, other manufacturers than Leica and Contax early on. In this series we focus mostly on M39 screw mount cameras. Because you had Leica and the Leica copies, and then you had Contax and the Contax copies or inspired cameras like the Nikon series. We had some Italian manufacturers, but always in small volumes, and they are very expensive and difficult to find. There was, however, one manufacturer who made quite a lot of cameras and where you can find the cameras for small amounts of money. And that's the French. They made the FOCA camera. Developed in 1938, but because of the Second World War, they couldn't release it until 1945. The first cameras, they looked just like this, but they only had a 50mm lens, which was rangefinder coupled. In 1949, they released this one, the FOCA Universal or Universal, which had rangefinder coupling with all of their lenses. It is a bit different compared to the Leicas and Contaxes in construction and idea. They had some novel solutions. It's a pretty small and elegant camera, a bit bigger than the original Leica, weighing 465 grams, so smaller than the Contax counterpart. It had a combined rangefinder viewfinder, and here's the first design novelty. They had the viewfinder in the middle, so I guess because of this they could put the rangefinder window further out here, still have room for this rewind lever, so they could make it a bit wider than otherwise. But it does not have a long effective base length. The magnification is 0.7 more or less, and the effective base length is just 28.8 millimeters. Sufficient for most stuff, but on the lower end when it comes to rangefinders from this era. So viewfinder in the middle, of course, better when it comes to parallax, but a bit worse when it comes to where your nose should be if you're a right eye shooter. And if you're a left eye shooter, you're gonna bump into your hand. So for left eye shooters, it is also better to have the viewfinder on the side rather than in the middle if you have the shutter on this side, so you have to have your right hand here. Slow speed dial here, and the next unique feature is having the winding lever here in the middle. So, and this camera is, like most FOCAs, unfortunately not working properly, but you can hear what the shutter would sound like this. That's how it sounds. But so you have to wind it like this, and because of this the grip is very nice. There's no bump here, and you don't have a rangefinder window to worry about. The slow speed dial is not in the way on this camera, since it's a bit further down than on the other ones. Another thing that's impressive, it has very nice strap lugs, and they are not at all in the way when gripping the camera. So that should have been copied by someone else. Unfortunately, I don't think that was the case. And so the lenses, there are some lenses, and they seem very nicely built. Nice collapsible lenses, but not Elmar size, more like the Samars and so on. And I think there's a f1.950 and this is a f2.8. I haven't tried them, so I can't say anything about the quality. The accessory shoe is placed a bit to the side of the center on this one, so there would be some parallax compared to where it's straight in the middle. So of course this way of winding takes more time than the other versions you have, so it's interesting, but not, I see why this wasn't adopted by anyone else. The back is removable like this for some reason. They had a super reflective base plate here. They have a, to tighten the film, I guess. So maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. Anyhow, compared to the Leica II variant, of course it is bigger. It is a bit taller, heavier, wider, but still on the smaller end of the scale when it comes to rangefinder cameras. And as you can see, there's a clear difference in the thickness of the collapsible lenses, but there are of course other ones for the Leica that's as thick as this one, or the Sorky as in this case. They actually improved on this one later by put this accessory shoe in the center, which is very nice, when you shift between auxiliary finder and focusing. And they put a winding lever here, and I think you set the speeds here as well. So that would have been preferable. And after that they made a last upgrade in 62, which was higher, had a big 1-to-1 viewfinder with parallax corrected, I think, projected frame lines, a Leica M competitor. But as all other camera makers had to realize, in the 60s SLRs were the future, so there aren't that many of the FOCA Universal RC made. A nice camera, but not worth exploring further, I think, because the lens selection is limited. It's very difficult to find the wider angle lenses of this one. I don't know the quality, and other than that, the FOCAs seem to have a problem with, here it is, instead of ribbons they have some kind of cord, and this often seems to be, that it breaks over time. Of course it will be more difficult to find a serviceman for these in most countries than for a Leica. There's also another issue. I don't know if they changed this later, but to have the focusing tab up here instead of down here, you have your hand right here, so you kind of have a conflict here when focusing. So it can, of course, you probably get used to it, but it would have been better to have it further down. The FOCA, a very interesting camera, and I'm sure it's nice to use if you find a working one, and especially if you find a few more lenses than a 50. If you like to use other lenses, that is. The FOCA rangefinder camera, an original concept from the 30s and a brave attempt by the French. It is not a Leica copy, unfortunately, I would say, as it does have nice strap lugs, but in all other respects, the Barnack is, in my opinion, a superior design.